Greetings, friends, and welcome to the amazing, I guess, Lou show. Lou, what's the name of your show?
Wait. That's not a VashSky over there. Who the heck is that bearded guy?
I don't know, but look, all I know is that this is Hollywood headlines and history stories today. Stars and streaming. Hollywood Backlot, of course, with Lou and you.
And
So
you.
basically that features all the amazing people that are like behind the scenes in the chat, right?
Right.
That's how we do the show.
Well,
All
that's
right.
that whole thing of, and you were there, and some of it was wonderful, and some of it was yucky. But we'll try and keep to the wonderful side.
No, indeed.
But it's a great pleasure to have a dear friend here filling in for the ever-traveling VashSky.
That's right, man. I feel
Sky
like
part is more important lately because he's in airplanes a lot. But
he's getting well radiated.
Yes, you laugh. My little brother is a retired airline pilot, and every year or two he has to go in and get something lasered off of him from all that gamma that he absorbed over the years.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's interesting that nobody turns into the Hulk after being an airline pilot. So
no, it never happens.
I'm just saying.
I do know this. Drinking my super sauce and hoping I'll throw the bad guys for a loss, but I don't turn into super chicken either. So that's life. But I did know the job was dangerous when he took it.
Well, but usually the dangers are like, like an untrained Navy pilot trying to get recertified, stuff like that.
Oh,
that is not a handsome thought. All right, though, I will say this. I love the picture of you and Steven Spielberg.
That's kind of fun. And there's one with Katzenberg and
the SKGs of it all.
Yeah, well, SKGs of Nazareth, I guess. They
hey now.
When they make Heavenly. Well, there was actually out there in Valencia, there was a company called Cheeses of Nazareth that made cheesecake. And they said it was simply heavenly. And it actually was pretty good cheesecake, too. But hell hath no fury like a pun unpunned in Hollywood. So
indeed. But let me tell you, I would imagine they were an outstanding restaurant. I wonder if it's still standing or if it got palisaded out of existence.
Oh, no, this was way over. This was out in Acton. Out beyond Valencia on the back road to Vegas.
Yeah. By the way, yeah. Man, have you ever done that at night? That was a very dark, very flat, terrifying road.
On a dark desert highway.
That's
the wrong direction, too.
So. No, indeed. Yeah, I think they were talking about the road from Arizona to Vegas. But I could be wrong. All I know is that song.
Oh, you went up through Kingman and
Yeah, the
been
40.
that way too many times.
Yeah. But I was thinking.
We always used to joke, because my wife, being from the South, was an old hand at it, but not me. For the longest time, the westernmost branch of a very famous coffee shop chain was in Kingman. It was like, oh God, we've reached Southern civilization, and that's
it's true,
such as it is. And it wasn't that they didn't want to be in California; they just didn't want to pay the real estate rates for the pads and the malls in California. But Cracker Barrel, I'm talking about.
Yeah, and the taxes. Woo-hoo.
Well,
yeah. You know how those taxes are in California.
Oh, well, I told you my story, right? When I was getting ready to move out here, and out here, by the way, for everyone, is Tennessee, which will come into our jukebox shortly. There's a wonderful, fascinating, you could spend all day there if you don't watch yourself, website, and no, it's not porn. From that description, it might have been. It's called city-data.com. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Okay.
But you could look up any city or town in America, big, small, or in between, and they will tell you more stuff about that place. I mean, right down to who has a ham radio license and who has a pilot's license and how many patent holders and what the 10 most popular first names and last names are in that area. Anyway, they have a tool on there, or they used to, where you plug in A, where you live now, B, where you're thinking about moving, and C, what your income overall is. And they tell you if you're making X where you live now, what it'll cost you to have the same basic lifestyle in Y. Now, obviously, some things don't translate, like culture and local goodies, and for better or ill. But they basically take things like fuel and real estate and taxes and all that utilities, Anyway, we took, just as a round number, because it was what my wife was making in her second job, 75 grand, and compared Sylmar, California, where we used to live, to Spring City, Tennessee, which is a town up the river from here, where we happened to see a house at that time that we really liked. If you were making 75 grand in Los Angeles, you could make 26 grand for the same thing in
Oh,
Tennessee.
goodness. Factor of 3.
Yeah. So, and then I did another little test talking about insurance and cost of doing business. I said, let me look at the Ralph's, and Vons, the two big chains in LA, grocery ads, and let me look at grocery ads in Tennessee and pick something that is not regionally specific. In other words, not produce and not meat and not perishables, something that's an absolute lingua franca anywhere you go in America. And I chose a certain size jar of Skippy peanut butter. And in Los Angeles, it was $1.47 more.
My goodness. Yeah.
Now, if you take that and you multiply it by 20, 30 items in your shopping cart every week, and you go by a year, wow. And that's, of course, the cost of taxes and OSHA and doing business and insurance and, So anyway, there are certainly comparisons to be made.
Indeed. And one of the reasons why insurance is such a big deal in California is because of the risk factors. There are less risk factors in Tennessee, I would imagine.
Well, there's storms and there's tornadoes occasionally in parts of it, but we happen to live in what we discovered is kind of a weather hole. The storms all go kind of north of us or south of us and around us, but they don't quite get us right where we are. So things you learn about a neighborhood only after you move in. When we got this house, I thought it was a nice house. I didn't know it was such a spiffy neighborhood until the first time I went to vote at this church up the road, and the parking lot was all Range Rovers and Lexuses, except for my beat up old thing. So I thought, I live in a fancier neighborhood than I thought I did. So,
well, anyway. I can't wait to visit. What I will say is this amazing thing. We have a lot of people in the chat. Do you ever talk to the chat, Lou? Like,
hell yes.
Revin out there.
People are already. Geez, Scott Westbrook gave us $5, and
it's like people want to talk about old Hollywood. I know I do. Eric Stratton.
Okay, let's do that because old, new, whatever. People are asking, isn't it too early and all that kind of stuff? Just to be clear, Vash was traveling this week and thought he couldn't make the usual 2:00 because he had a flight to catch, and so he moved it to 11. And then something else came up where he couldn't even make this, and luckily, our pinch hitter over here is available.
I was just overjoyed to be asked. They were like last night. Hey, you want to do this? I'm like, I get to hang out with Lou for 2 hours. Of course, I want to do this.
Oh, yeah. Well, 2, I don't know, but an hour anyway.
All right. Well, we'll try.
Whatever works. We'll try. Weddings, bar mitzvahs, radio shows.
We'll go where the show goes. How's that?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Speaking of Scott Westbrook and the miraculous $5 he sent during the course of the show with a super duper sticker, thank you for that.
Is that an applauding cat or an applauding chipmunk? I can't quite decide which.
And I'm not wearing the right glasses. I got out of bed, put on the wrong glasses. So it is what it is. But Scott's here. Juliet's out there. We got all these great people. Tom is out there.
Yeah.
Of course, stuttering guitarist. This guy, he's amazing. Love this guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and as I highlighted Revin and TLJ Screwjobs out there.
One of the things about the wonderful world of social media, stuttering guitarist and I send him all kinds of guitar stuff I get. I don't really play the guitar, but I have friends who do, and they send me stuff, and so he gets it. I'm deadly allergic to cats, but I'm in a cat lovers group because I share the memes. I used to own a bear, as you know, but I send you the bear stuff. So all of these various... You don't have to be personally connected to a particular fashion or fetish or whatever you want to call it to find people who are and to share pleasure about them. So,
It's a cat. It's a cat, Lou. It's a cat.
Oh, okay. If you say so.
No, that's what they say so. It's the
the Japanese people make funny.
Well, I thought it was a Shiba Inu too, which is a dog.
Oh, well.
So
the cheeks kind of made me think of Alvin and Simon and Theodore somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we're the Chipmunks. Chipmunk. I used to know that song through and through.
Well, a dead one, Juliet. Lou, you owned a bear. I acquired, through a long story I won't bore you with, a bearskin rug that was made out of a bear that lived at J. Paul Getty's zoo, his personal private zoo, at his mansion in Malibu. And it was great. But when I brought it here and had it in a box in the garage, one day we opened the box and the bugs had been in there eating the bear. So what was that? What was that line they used to have at the Adventurers Club? God bless it. It was so good.
No,
And they had this
20
they had
years,
this
30 years ago.
well, yeah, but they had this line where they said, some days you eat the bear and some days the bear eats you, but either way, always dress for the hunt. So
That's right.
anyway, so my bear
goodness,
is no
and
more.
that was, by the way, Lou, that was my favorite place.
Mine
And,
too. I would spend all night there every night. And you
Yeah.
could do that. And
Yeah. And just sip on a drink and have a
congaloosh.
a congaloosh and have a bit of a snack with some tapas of some sort. And,
That
it was so fun.
And
And the
then, of
boss
course,
and I, the boss and I
midnight
would go
you'd run
there.
outside and celebrate New Year's. But
Yeah. The boss and I would be there, and like back when when you're young, you can bounce back in the morning and go to the theme park at 7.
yeah.
Not so much now.
No.
All right. Well, I tell you what. Let's talk about some modern Hollywood.
Okay, go
Hollywood
for it.
doings.
What do you got?
So what I got is probably the same thing everybody else is feeling about Disney Plus, only in a smaller scale. For example, Andor's pulled in over $300 million in subscriber revenue.
I saw this, and I don't know how they figured this out.
Neither do
How
I.
do you know what people are subscribing for, whether it's this or something else? And overall, they keep losing subscribers. So I always thought this was Parrot Analytics, whoever they are, is doing new math someplace to figure this out.
But they have that since their founding. They've been doing new math. It's like, how many impressions and good feelings does this give you, or bad feelings? They don't really care what the feeling is. They're measuring feelings. I don't know how you do that without asking.
And they're comparing it to Ashoka, so that's
well,
pot,
and this
kettle pot.
I don't know, but
Oprah.
this
Uma?
seems like, to me, Lou, this seems like bologna sausage. So
Yeah.
let's read into it. Maybe we can take away what they have to say. But ahead of Star Wars Day, well, I guess
which
technically,
is today.
yeah.
Right?
Well, no, it's not.
May
It's
the
what
May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, but they changed
All
it.
that
You
stuff.
know that.
Oh,
It's not real Star Wars Day.
By the way, speaking of days and why they are, you do know about Earth Day, right? Why it's the day it is? Eddie Albert, he of Green Acres and other.
Oh, yeah.
It's his birthday, and he was a very strong environmental champion, and they made it his birthday in honor of him.
Well, that was kind.
Yes.
Yeah, and I loved Green Acres. It was an odd show.
Ba-dum.
An older fella and a lady that was blessed with everything but intelligence. And they found themselves on a farm.
Yeah, but she was the smart Gabor,
Oh no, I know that.
Yeah,
She presented herself identically. So, but
well, I think about her the same way I think about Shatner and other people. When you get the joke about yourself and go with it instead of against it, you can have success forever.
Yeah. I that's kind of what I do here. I'm often the straight man, So, and I like it. I like that role. It's kind of fun.
It's better than when you put on that blazer and play Johnny Carson. I got to tell you, that's a little weird sometimes.
I enjoyed that. It was
I know you do, but
it doesn't fit me. That's for sure.
No,
and neither does
no.
that coat. That coat intentionally is badly fit. But but I tell you what, when I do bring back the Sunday show, it'll be with a completely different pastiche.
Oh, good. Anyway,
let's get to it. So Star Wars. That's right. Star Wars. May the 4th be with you. Fans of the franchise. Yada yada yada. We have a lot to celebrate, Lou. That's what this article says. We don't have anything to celebrate other than Revenge of the Sith, which was pulling in extra box office dollars, which they actually pulled right before they dropped Thunderbolts. Did you know that?
Sure.
Revenge of the Sith showed up in the box office to celebrate its anniversary.
I had a sebaceous Sith one time that gave me revenge, but that was anyway. Uh,
Regardless, there's a lot. We've had a lot in the theaters. Is the whole point. And then Thunderbolts came out, and then on streaming, um, we had this show that's in its second season now, Andor, and it may have gotten off to a slow start. A slow start. I think like around 2 million people total bothered to watch those 3 episodes. If it was my memory poor,
well,
or
speaking as somebody who used to make TV with seasons of 24 and 28 and even 32 episodes, these things that
wow,
run 8, when they talk about a second season, it's like,
it's the
did they really
midway.
shoot it all at once and it's hiding in the can somewhere? And that's true in many cases. And
It
in some
is, but
cases, it should stay hiding in the can, but that's another story.
well, for this one, in my opinion, but there's that. But according to Parrot Analytics streaming economic system, they calculate that from when it premiered, the original show in September of
Yeah.
2022 through the end of 2024, the show brought in over 300 million in streaming subscriber revenue.
How do they calculate that? Nobody
I
signs up and pays for, not to mention there's 43 million different prices, it seems, but nobody pays for a subscription saying, I'm doing this specifically to see Andor. Or,
Um, I don't know, but they're trying to figure it out, and to me, this looks a lot like bologna sausage, because without soliciting the opinion of the people that are coming in for your streaming service, how would they know? Also, with viewership as low as it is on anything that Disney Plus is doing that's Star Wars related, this is their chart because it looks better with the numbers that we've
so
assembled
that's not the drone
for a
show
chart.
at Disney Springs.
It might be. Kind of looks
That's
like it.
actually, yeah. Uh,
Only you and I would think about that. Anyway,
Interesting.
the Andor show apparently it was a giant earner for Disney to 150 million in Q2 of the year that it premiered. But then beyond that, it just had a really slow burn over
Which of
the
these
course.
Qs is the one where they lost 75,000 subscribers or 750,000 or whatever it was
I
that
don't
it went
know.
down? But so, it's like, uh,
It's wild,
Star
but
Wars are cumulative global value. Ooh,
uh,
wait a minute. Methodology note. Can we zoom in on the fine print?
oh
Let's
goodness.
see.
Okay, let's see. Methodology note.
I mean, it's going to say something really fancy.
Says chart chart.
Acquisition and retention. Public. Oh, so there's our this is bullshit disclaimer.
Okay.
I mean, really, look at that. Audience signals. Percent
Dynamics,
catalog.
catalog
People
dynamics.
people who use vocabulary like this should not call their company parrot. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, what here? You know
it's
why
not
it's
dead.
that?
It's pining for the fjords.
Well, no,
Uh,
but it's relative because Lou, parroting something is repeating something back. So Disney says we want you to make some numbers and some charts and do some
yeah,
analytics around this and make it as rosy as possible. And so what they do is they parrot back what the customers' wants are, and they give us this stuff, which I think you're
subscriber
correct in referring
acquisition
to it as
and
baloney.
retention.
It's baloney
Since
sausage.
Disney doesn't know, even if let's say you said, "Oh, that's what's going to make me sign up for Disney Plus, Andor," and then you quit, they don't know if you quit because of that or something else. All right. Anyway, it's bullshit. Is the answer to that question?
It is bologna sausage indeed, and from a demographic perspective, Andor has about the same gender break. See, this is important, Lou. Gender breakdown.
Yeah.
Uh, Over 70% male are watching Andor. Not very many of them, actually. The show has an older audience compared to Star Wars shows in general. Around 60% are over 30.
Ooh, older.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Over
yeah.
30.
They
There you
don't
go,
understand.
kids out there. You're old if you're over 30. Don't trust anybody under whatever.
or yeah, or anybody trying to sell you a wooden nickel.
I'm sorry. The
Anyways,
words older and 30 in the same sentence just
it's wild.
doesn't work for me, but that's
But
just how I feel.
under 50% of the audience for Star Wars series overall. So this show skews older at 30. Because you know what the other shows are, Lou? Why this is a something that they're paying attention to?
I
They're
don't know why.
the animated ones. like Star Wars Visions
Ah,
and whatever the Clone Wars
ah.
and such,
It
because
all
they're all
counts
the.
as Star Wars, right?
It
So that,
is.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it counts as fetish wars because it was all that cowboy hat wearing dude. But whatever. Anyway, so while the show delivered, so while the show has delivered subscriber revenue, it has not expanded the audience of the franchise in the same way that The Mandalorian has, with significantly more female audience. Do you think that's relevant? Is that the new audience?
Listen, we all know that Disney Plus is a loser,
Yeah.
and it would be a loser if it hadn't cost so much money to create, just based on the lost opportunity of just sitting back. And if they had just said, hey, all the great classic Disney stuff that we used to release once every 7 years and put out specials? Now you can have it all anytime you want it. Just pay here. Everybody would have been happy. But no, they had to make new stuff. And they had to say, and we're not going to put our stuff on those evil Netflixes and Amazons, which they do now, of course, because they sort of have to.
They had to
But
go back to that. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And look,
I blame Scarlett Johansson. See,
uh,
for
really?
suing them over the window and over putting things out simultaneously. She screwed up the whole. She gave away the game. I tell you.
I
Uh,
really I don't blame it all solely on her, but to that end though, I think you and I would both agree that she was not given the what she was promised in her contract. And that's the by the way, contracts have changed in Hollywood. And the upfront money
well,
is the
but
thing.
see, look, it isn't just about her.
Right.
There have been cases in the past where they made something under the TV minimum rules, and that goes down to craft service and everybody else, not just the stars, and then decided, oh, no, we're going to put it out as a feature. And they all said, well, then you owe us a lot of money. Um, the particular job that one of the jobs that I used to do, uh, had a weird quirk about it in that it was not per week or per hour, it was per episode.
Yep.
You see.
Yep.
And when I was doing the Tracy Ullman show, which you may remember was a sketch show, we would shoot a week's worth of sketches. But if they put them in 2 or 3 different shows, suddenly maybe I was owed per episode for 3, even though I was only there for a week.
Right.
And there was all kinds of hemming and hawing and grievances. And I don't know if everybody out there, here's a little Hollywood instruction, which is I'm supposed to do this, right? There's a thing called a grievance. What is a grievance? A
I
grievance.
isn't it isn't that only celebrated at Festivus? Sorry,
A
old
grievance
TV
is
joke.
when you think they done something wrong that isn't in the contract, but it isn't technically you suing them, the great unwashed of the movie industry. It is the union or guild that has the contract suing to enforce the terms of said contract. And they take a particular case of, hey, you should have paid me X and you paid me Y. And so what happens is every year when you hear these contract negotiations, which I've participated in several times, um, part of it is that they pick a board, so to speak, of entertainment lawyers, and the union picks 25, and the studios pick 25 or whatever it is, to be randomly assigned as arbitrators for these grievances. Now, they will call you up and say, well, listen, we're going to file a grievance on your behalf because we think they've done you wrong. And you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And it takes like roughly a year to get to the point where you're actually going to go in and testify, and it's your day in court. And usually, about a week before that happens, you get this phone call from the guild that says, hey, they owe you. In one case that I was involved with, they owed me, we thought, $8,500. Would you take $3,000 and a promise not to do it again? They said, how would you feel about that? I said, I'd rather have the 8.
Wow.
And they said, well, it's not technically up to you because you're not the one suing. We are. And if we think because you see, grievances can officially establish a precedent and be applied across the board or not at the option of the participants. And so if they can make it so they never do that again in that particular instance, they're willing to throw you sort of semi under the bus because it's not really a suit by you. It's a suit to enforce the contract. So this stuff goes on, and it's always 99% of the time it gets settled a week or two before the actual hearing date that's been set by everybody. Well, I don't know how long we want to go on about this, but I could tell a story about the great big strike.
But that's how we end up with. But that's how we end up with strikes, right, Lou?
Well, it can be, because you see, there was this big Writers Guild strike long before this recent one. Or was it a strike? That's the question. You see, when they made the deal for home video, for royalties, for residuals on home video, and understand first, most people don't understand what a residual is. The idea of a residual is, you used my performance again, therefore I should get paid. How much and how many times and for how long, that's to be negotiated. But the what's the word I'm looking for? The motivation, the core principle is, even though I only acted once when I walked on the soundstage, it was performed again, just like it was, the third week of a Broadway show and you're getting paid every week. So the question was, it was a percentage of what? The distributor's income or the producer's income? Now, what does that mean? Well, when Universal Pictures produces a motion picture, and then Universal Home Video distributes it on DVD and VHS and all that, those are two separate companies, even though they're owned by the same company. But one company pays, quote unquote, the other one a percentage to get the rights to do it. So which percentage are you getting a piece of? Well, the guilds said we should get it, the Writers Guild in this case, based on the producer, because that's who we worked for. But the studio said, no, but they're not collecting the money. The distributor is, which is a lesser number. And that was the big argument, okay, as things headed into a contract.
Wow.
Well, here was the deal. They rallied the troops. We had big meetings. Everybody got up, and I got to tell you, folks, people don't have a sense of history. Even then, this is 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And when you see a 20-something showrunner from a popular sitcom stand up and compare herself to John L. Lewis, the famous labor union for the miners, and how we had to stand up for the principal, and everybody gets all excited, what they didn't tell you is that, again, just like that grievance thing, if this got settled, because you see, it all happened with timing that was interesting. This grievance that was filed, they picked a test case. I think it was Paramount for 1977. I don't remember exactly, so pardon me for being old. But and it just so happens the grievance, the hearing, the thing I told you never happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It's about to happen the same week the contract was up.
Oh, wow.
So they said, well, listen, here's the deal. If that happens and we lose, said the studio, we're only going to apply it to that studio in that 1 year. We're not going to apply it across the board. And you can come back and sue us for 1978 and 1979 and for Universal and for 20th Century Fox.
Wow.
That's enough. And then you have to figure that the result of all of that, the profit or loss of a given production. And that was the era when every dentist in America was getting together with 12 friends and investing in a movie.
Right.
Partnerships, right?
Right.
So you literally would have enough work for all the lawyers and all the king's horses and all the king's men for the next 50 years. So it let that happen. And they cut a deal, and everybody behind the scenes knew it. But you didn't tell that to the rank and file because you were trying to politically keep them hot.
Well, and that 1973 one went on, I think that's the second longest Writers Guild strike, 111 days.
So yeah, something like that. And meanwhile, of course, what happened was lots of weird stuff came out of it. Anybody remember when they did a season or two of Mission Impossible that they shot in Australia? And the only person who was down there was Peter Graves from the original cast. And actually, I think Greg Morse's son played his part. And it was supposed to be all new. You know what it was? They couldn't write new scripts to make a new show. It was the scripts from the original series, only reset Down Under.
Wow.
It was the same scripts because they owned those. So there's all kinds of weird, strange stuff
You
that
know,
happens.
all those dirty Hollywood types, all the money guys. Speaking of which, not only did the dentists fund the films, Lou, one of them was very disagreeable, and he was that he was the fifth of the five dentists that told you the toothpaste was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeremiah Hembry sends us something good for $5.
Oh, how
Says,
nice.
you said you review the two City Hunter movies, the
Uh,
Nikki
I don't even know
Larson
what that
City
is.
Hunter
So, no, we
movie.
didn't.
On Genre Guys. That's for Genre Guys.
Well, yeah, but no, we haven't done those movies.
Okay, all right, yeah,
So,
that's a future thing, Jeremiah Hembry. So keep your eyes peeled. These guys follow through, and they work
well,
very
it's not
hard.
on our immediate radar, but I can tell you the next few we're doing. I mean, we're about to
Yeah,
do Ford versus Ferrari,
good film.
which is a great movie. I just
Yeah,
watched it again recently. And
yeah.
then we're going to do the Hallelujah Trail, which, if you haven't seen it, folks, you want it's just this huge comedy western with Burt Lancaster, Lee Remick, Jim Hutton, Timothy Hutton's father, um, Brian Keith, who I had the joy of working with once upon a time, Donald Pleasance, Martin Landau, and Dub Taylor, and a whole lot of whiskey, and a score from Elmer Bernstein, and directed by Frankenheimer. And it's just this massive, epic thing about a wagon train full of booze crossing the West and everybody who wants in on it. And it's just grand and
And
wonderful.
I thought Bert was great in that, but that's just me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's another guy who kind of got the joke and went with it in some cases like that. And then after that, you bet we're going to do Mary Poppins. Um, and then one of my other favorite bizarre, strange, wonderful Westerns, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, with Tony Randall, and directed by George Pal, who did all of the animation special effects stuff in it. And then we're going to do the John Wick movies, and we're going to do another documentary. We did a documentary that was great about this guy, Drew, who did all the great posters. Lauren found one called Special When Lit, all about pinball. That's really, really great. And then down the road, we've got several other movies planned. We're kind of scheduled, kind of, sort of, because we never really totally nailed it down, through the beginning of July, and then we will add more. And we just did Blues Brothers, and we just did what did we just do? Well, anyway, we got the funniest comment on Big Trouble in Little China. Somebody commented, and I just love this. He said, my 5-year-old little girl loves that movie. And whenever I ask her, what movie do you want to watch? She says, can we watch Jack Burton? I love Jack Burton.
I love that movie, but
Oh,
Lou,
me too.
I really do want to wrap this up, and I want to say thank you to Meravita for a $5 super sticker. Thank you very much, my friend.
Okay, well, we got another story.
Yeah, we do. I got another story, but I want to wrap this one up and say, so if you look at these numbers and how they calculate demand and season length and all this other stuff, you can see why the demographic is so young. Mandalorian kind of oriented around those that think young. Clone Wars, definitely those that think young.
Do they drink
Mandalorian season
Pepsi?
2. Look at the Bad Batch. Bad Batch is season 1, 40. It's all these really weird ways to calculate things to try to justify making money. And the peak demand day was mid-season for Bad Batch, but the peak demand day for all these other things seemed to be the finale, except for Obi-Wan, which the peak demand day, Lou, was not great.
That tells you they watched it the first day and said, I don't think I want to give this another day.
I'm done with the show.
And
Regardless.
Again, this means nothing as far as their real revenue, because, all right, I'm watching the Bad Batch season 3. I'll wait till the very end. And if it didn't get any better, forget it. I'm out of here. And it didn't, and they were.
Yeah.
So,
well, and the other option is they wait until the last day of the season and they watched all of it.
well, there you go. There you go.
And that seemed to be the way that they handled things with season 3 of Mandalorian. So when you look at the things that peak in the middle of it, like Acolyte, people noped out at that point. They just gave up, and that's just the way it is. But regardless, as we wrap up the story, these numbers are baloney sausage. And Lou, I mean, how would you sum up the idea that they are able or capable of figuring out what revenue got pulled in by a given
Well, the obvious
show?
question is all of these people's wonderful analytics to the contrary,
Yeah,
how'd they come out? And the answer is they keep losing subscribers, not gaining.
yeah.
I mean, that they have to tell the stockholders every quarter. Oops, well, we're going to have a soft one this one, and the next one's going to be kind of soft too. And
In
you
fact,
know,
just figure everything's going to be soft from here.
yeah, right, right.
And that's
So,
not a good thing. I mean, it's not an
no,
ice
I'm
cream
not
parlor.
cheering it. I'm saying it's their own damn fault because
Yeah,
they would have you believe, based on this story, that they're making wonderful stuff that people like. Well, if it was wonderful stuff that people liked, people would pay to see it. End of story.
yeah. And Jim's right. I mean, it's very shallow content, especially the Star Wars stuff. And yeah, I mean, like I said, uh, we've got more though, Lou. Is this the part where I play the middle thing? Is there a middle thing I play?
Is there a middle thing? I don't know.
Like, is there an intermission? Do we do an
Well, I guess
intermission?
we could formally refer to the jukebox as the intermission. What we
Oh,
did, you see, I love music from movies, and apparently YouTube does bad things to you if you dare to share it, even though there are people out there who don't care. So we found a way around it, or I did, which I said, well, what if we give people a link to the music that we like, and they can go listen on their own, so to speak. And in this case, it's a very bizarre thing because
it.
as it happens, the 1st of May was my 7th anniversary here in the place with the choo choo, and so I thought to celebrate that, let's go with the most bizarre, strange, and wonderful thing, and it's in the description, uh, and it's the famous song "Chattanooga Choo Choo," but it's a later incarnation of it than the original. The original was the Nicholas Brothers and great big dance number. This is Carmen Miranda, the lady with the tutti-fruitti hat, in a movie that takes place in the Rocky Mountains, nowhere near here, called Springtime in the Rockies, with her and Harry James and a cast of great musical people. No, Cesar Romero dances in this movie. You didn't know the Joker could dance, I bet, out there, but he can. And anyway, she sings Chattanooga Choo Choo, Choo Choo, Choo Choo, Choo Choo.
And here it is, right
Yes,
here on the screen. As a
yes,
matter of fact, I put the link in the chat for you guys to follow along.
excellent.
And you know,
Uh,
Lou, I did a Carmen Miranda. I accidentally sang one of her songs, the Mayu Caro song. Is that
yeah,
her?
Mama
Yeah,
Quiero, yeah.
Mayu Caro, my Mayu Caro. Yeah, I did that during a stream the other day, and this is so coincidental that we're talking about this. But this was incredibly out of place, right?
Well, I guess, except it works somehow. Naturally, when I think of John Payne and the Rocky Mountains, I think of Carmen Miranda from Brazil and her Tutti Frutti, although that's kind of a nitty frutti hat rather than a Tutti Frutti one. But she was a power. She was a force to be reckoned with.
She was
And
unique
yeah, yeah.
for sure. So
Ah,
I have to tell you though, most of these films, and especially ones that featured performers that may have always been out of place, but however it is, Hollywood made it work to insert their little segment or their bit. This one's just one of the greats. So if you get a chance, grab the link in the chat, save it for later, watch it. It's incredible.
oh,
I
here's somebody thanking us for mentioning a Big Trouble because they hadn't watched it before, and because of the genre guys, they did. Well, that warms the cucarachas of my heart, or whatever,
Yeah.
and Barry Place. If you're not following Barry Place, folks, you're missing out. He does marvelous stuff, even if he
Yeah, I
doesn't
Barry
spend
Place
any voice
is
Barry
one of
Jam stuff.
our friends, our pals, our buddies. So, and you get unique perspectives of wonderful Southern California and
Yeah.
lesser discovered entertainment options there.
Well,
So,
the perspective of mine, of course, is in the rearview mirror. I posted a little ode to our exodus 7 years ago in various social media, and one of the things I mentioned was when we were driving across the border in scenic Barstow into Arizona and heading here. Uh, I realized, I said, I gave Southern California, where I was born, was second generation native, the best years of my life. And it gave me the best years of its life. The only problem is I still have some best years left. California, not so much. And that's why I left.
Yeah,
Uh,
Lou. I mean, that period of time, Hollywood started to empty out ghost towns and things like that. I mean,
well,
we're living in an area of what would it, not abandonment's a strong word.
but when I wrote that, a friend of mine who still is there told me, yeah, you were prescient. You were right. And I should have listened to you sooner. And I'm listening now. So,
Yeah,
well, we could
yeah,
go on about that all day long, about how sad the situation is. And I've told the story. When we were getting ready to leave, I discovered a story about a guy up in Silicon Valley who'd made his millions in the computer biz and had bought 4 houses, one of which
mm,
he lived in, and the
nope,
other 3 he leased out for kind of a pay my expenses income. And
yeah,
when he decided to decamp, and he moved to Colorado Springs, I think, he went to the 3 families who he knew well that rented from him and told them, listen, I'm going to have to sell these houses, and I don't know what kind of deal whoever the new person is. And they said, why? And he told them what he was going to do. And they said, are you going to do it there too and buy 4 houses? He said, probably. They said, great, we'll move with you.
wow,
And all 4 families left at the same time. So
wow,
yeah, that one just blew me away.
yeah.
Uh,
And here's an interesting comment. I want your comment on this one, Lou, because I
okay.
agree. Carmen's Act was riffed off by Charo in the 70s.
Well, Charo was her own thing too, and still is. She's still going strong. But Charo, was a creation of Coogie, of Xavier Cugat, who was also in that Latin band era that that
Do you do
Carmen
you
was part of.
do you think it was a great loss when Desilu was stopped being influential in Hollywood? That's a personal question. I don't know.
Uh, sure. I mean, look at the shows they created and stuck with.
Yeah,
I mean, you only have to look at 2, really, aside from their own stuff. Star Trek and
Star
Mission
Trek.
Impossible would not exist without.
Yeah, Desilu.
Um, but I remember the great line when Desi passed away. Army Archer covered the funeral in Variety. Army was the gossip columnist of Variety,
All right.
and quoted Lucy Jr. giving the eulogy at her father's funeral. And she said, my father went to his doctor and he asked him, is it true that if I give up the booze and the late nights and the wild women, that I'll live 10 years longer? And his doctor said, yes, and it'll feel like 10 years. And so he didn't. But he was a genius. He invented the entire world of multi-camera sitcoms
Yeah.
that I was so involved in. But he was a genius, and she was a power, and I'm glad they existed.
Me
And
too. Me too.
yeah,
I just think about all the sitcoms that came after, and
yeah.
it's like, I mean, there's a lot of heritage in their creations, and I
But again,
always,
you think of him about sitcoms first,
yeah,
but Star Trek and Mission
yeah,
Impossible and several others were not sitcoms. They were. But sitcoms and hour-longs, they go through phases, because when there's a lot of hour-longs, suddenly all the pilots are sitcoms. Why? Because they're hoping if they catch you in the second half hour of an hour-long show that you're getting tired of, you'll switch,
yep,
and vice versa. And it goes
yeah.
back and forth that way. I mean, I will never forget, I was involved with a show
Try
with
not to be
Lonnie.
so specific.
Ah, with Lonnie Anderson, and it
Okay,
was a great show, and we made it, and we had no idea whether it was going to get picked up or not.
right.
And Lonnie at that time, I don't know how many people know what TVQ is, and I might have told this before, but what the heck? I'm an
Go
old
ahead.
man.
Go ahead.
TVQ was this rating that was done by somebody smarter than Parrot Analytics of who was the most popular. Who out there among all the people on television would you watch the show just because they were in it? Regardless of what the show was, that they were that compelling a personality. And Lonnie was number 1 in the entire biz back then. And this show featured her and Jack Elam, and Jimmy Cromwell, and it was a great show. And she came down before we shot the last episode of that first, and it turned out only season. And she said, "Well, everybody gather around." She said, "I just got off the phone with Brendan, the network boss." And they knew they were going to move it to a different time slot for the rerun season to try and pick up more people because it was kind of on the fringe. And she said, "So have you decided?" And he said, "Well," she said, "when you put us after Alf, we did really well." He said, "Yeah, but that's a kid's show and you're not really a kid's show. And when you put us after Amen, we did really well." "Yeah, but that's a black show and you're not really a black show." She said, "So I don't know. Let's just make a TV show and see what happens." The #1 TVQ star. And where did they put that show in the rerun season? Opposite the second half hour of Dallas.
Oh, no way. Really?
That was all she wrote. It was gone. And I'm going, but these network people, they live in a world of their own. And
was that Tartikoff that did that?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, boy wonders have their off days too.
They clearly.
The moral of that story.
Clearly.
But, well, and then I was involved in some of the first shows for a thing called the TPN and all those oddballs, CW and all those new networks that they were going to create, right?
Right.
And mostly those shows began in the off season for everybody else, in the mid season for everybody else, because A, that's when they could get the crews, and B, that's when they thought they could get a better chance of being looked at on channel 13 or whatever.
UPN.
And so I'm sitting,
and
UPN, and I'm sitting there in the booth with one of the geniuses from that outfit. And I said, "Well, why don't you make your season just run this time of year rather than the regular time of year? Because then you'll have this clear path to people giving you a chance all the time."
Right.
And his answer was, "Oh, well, our suppliers are not set up to do it that way."
Wow.
Yeah. But it's not just TV and movies, folks. As some of you know, I had a whole other career as a writer about food and wine and spirits and travel and stuff. And one time there was this outfit, what was it called? Old Ways Trust, which was one of these intellectual think tanks, but it was about food. And they had a seminar about quote unquote third world cuisine, back when quinoa was a strange word to everybody, and back when, native grains were. Anyway, they had on this panel the editor-in-chief of Bon Appetit magazine. And for those who are too young to remember, before there was all the Food Network and all the stuff on television and social media, Bon Appetit was it, guys. And it was the Bible. And anybody who cared about food and cooking bought it. It was huge. And they asked her, "Why don't you do more of these recipes that involve these less famous international cuisines in your magazine?" And she said, "Well, because our readers, in Des Moines and Poughkeepsie and wherever, can't get the ingredients." Meanwhile, friend of mine, great Thai chef, guy who really put Thai cooking on the map in LA, Tommy Tang, wrote a cookbook and did the work to research in all 50 states in the back in an appendix, where can you go to buy lemongrass? Where can you go to buy fish sauce? All the things that were involved. He wasn't willing to take that excuse. And it's all a question of whether you are, how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you're the person in charge and the one who's going to make the statement and make it happen, or you're the one that's following behind. And lots of very powerful people get confused about where they stand.
They really do, because it's all about whether or not you want to put in the work to change the status quo. Speaking of changing the status quo, Vash is here.
My God.
He says, "Hey there, guys."
Vash who? I forgot all about. Who's that?
How's the stream going? Oh, gosh, that's funny, because the message I got from Lou this morning was, "You're not going to pull a Wally Pip here."
Yeah, and I said, and you knew, and I knew you'd know, and I knew, Vash, Vash in the chat, did you know what Wally Pip was, or did you look him up? Well, for those who don't know, you may have heard of a guy named Lou Gehrig, the Iron Man. And
this
Lou
is
Gehrig,
a really old baseball story. It's a good
Lou
one.
When Lou Gehrig started playing, he just kept playing every game for the next,
forever.
I forget how many years, until he got sick.
Forever.
And Wally Pipp was the guy who took the day off to let him come into the lineup. And so it became an expression in baseball that if you got replaced, you were Wally Pipped.
Dude, you know, I just called you dude, unfair. Lou, how long was that he was the backup to the greatest ball player of all time?
Oh, golly. Well, he didn't last long as a backup, but how long let's see. See, this is why we had this internet thing.
You look it up right now.
Well, I have a connection to him in a different way, but that's another story. 17 seasons straight, Lou Gehrig. And 361 batting average, 10 home runs and 35 RBIs in 34 games in the World Series. Wow. Yeah, he was pretty special.
Gehrig was special. First of all, 361 batting average is unheard of. You can barely get guys to break the Mason-Dixon line in major leagues today.
By the way, the day he died of ALS, which my own dear dad died of, it's not a good way to go, folks. Get something else. Literally, June 2nd, 1941 was 16 years to the day when he replaced Wally Pipp at first base.
Wow.
How's that?
Amazing.
The world is full of funny, weird, wonderful coinkydinks, I tell you.
It truly is. Truly is.
Anyway, that's
you.
Baseball.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, guys. We talked a little sports ball. Apologize.
No apology necessary.
But I just wanted to bring up Vash because I thought, I'm subbing in for the great one today.
If you guys only knew who I was having breakfast with right now.
Oh, now
did you bring enough for the whole class?
I think we have great guests all around, and some of them were gathered together. Speaking of being gathered together, let's talk a little bit about one last thing, if you don't mind, just for a few minutes. Lou, do you have a few minutes?
I'm mi casa es su casa.
Oh, okay. All right. I want to put that to the test, but let's take a look at this last bit here. I thought this was an excellent choice for something to cover with you, because it brings out a very tainted perspective of the media that we call the trades. And of course, this was suggested to me by the man who's not here, but we'll take a look at it right now. Even Marvel knows its movies and shows need to be better. What a great way to present an idea. So the superhero studio is cutting. It's cutting. Am I reading that right? Is this poor editing?
Cutting TV production. That's like the La Brea Tar Pits. I think they need an editor here.
Cutting TV production and fixing its film slate.
They're not fixing, however, the film slate. So maybe that's part of the problem.
They're not. After fans lost the plot. It's the fans' fault. It's the fans. Yeah, you have to remember, it's always the fans' fault.
Who wrote this epic? Let's see.
Ben Fritz.
Ben Fritz.
Yeah, well, look, it's from, where's this from? I don't know. I don't even know where this is from, but I don't know that it matters. Looks like what do you call it? The folks over at the Wrap.
Feige is blaming Disney Plus.
Yes.
Oh, that's the problem.
It's always been the problem.
Them thin. I see.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because Disney's hunger for content on the new streaming service, the studio behind the Avengers, churned out. It's true. Too many movies and shows with interconnected stories.
I question that verb. When you reshoot something 3 or 4 times, you are not churning. You're not eagerly pumping the butter there. You're kind of, I don't know, maybe today we'll make a half a pound. Tomorrow
Lou, I refer to it as grinding out the cheese whiz at this point.
They're stamping out the vintage where the grapes of Iron Man are stored or something like that.
Or Wrath. But anyway. Goodness gracious. So anyway, So it's because there's too much. So the deluge, I love that word, deluge, of material from the Marvel Cinematic Universe or MCU on Disney Plus overwhelmed and eventually alienated viewers. Do you want to know why? Or I'll just ask you, why was it alienating viewers, Lou?
Because it stunk.
That's a big secret. You even whisper it.
Making stinky movies is not a superpower.
It's so true. It is so true. So it also stretched Feige and his team's resources thin. Well, yeah, I was going to say, isn't he observing this in real time as the quote unquote supervisor of all things Marvel?
Hey, wait. Barry Place is saying he's got to go because he's streaming at Disneyland. Barry Place, could you put the link to that stream in the chat so people can go watch you there?
Yeah, you have a wrench. Let us know.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Give us, because I got to tell you, for Disneyland, you want to watch Barry Place stream.
Oh, yeah.
For Orlando, Lorena is the great wanderer.
Yeah, she is. She truly is. And
but anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt this.
No.
Poop, but,
it's an interesting. This is an interesting essay. It's inventive. It's inventive. Anyway,
of course, this guy thought of it all by himself. Nobody from Feige and company reached out to him and said, "Could you please write this story?
Maybe
we'll give you a popcorn bucket and a free goodie bag."
Yeah.
Cash and prizes estimated to be valued at $500. Dun, 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 dun.
I love that show. So regardless, the deluge was the thing that caused the problem. And it chased away the viewers, but it also stretched Feige and his resources, right? Marvel's box office sales, streaming popularity, and formerly untouchable position in pop culture suffered. Lou, I'm pretty sure. Oh, by the way, folks, this is the stream you need to go to next, just so you know. If you want to get some real good coverage of Disneyland. I think it's right now. He's got to get going.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Well, don't leave yet. You'll get there late and watch it on reruns. But anyway.
That's right. I'm gonna put that on highlights so we catch that at the end. But okay. So when we look at this, the box office sales, streaming popularity, and formerly untouchable position in pop culture had been sacrificed by the deluge. But it was exactly what you said. It wasn't just it was a deluge of
the bottom paragraph on this page.
All right.
If I said to you, "Hey guys, I can fix the whole MCU," what we'll do a movie about a team of sidekicks, has-beens, and other C-listers. Yeah, that'll work. Now, I haven't seen the movie. You have, but
I have.
On its face, that's not what they used to call high concept in Hollywood, right?
No. In fact, the biggest problem with this particular film, if as somebody who's seen it, is that it's a rambling therapy session beginning to end, and it's extra intensive therapy for 27 minutes towards the middle of the third act. 1/4 of this film was an intense therapy session. That's not going to work.
And the people who would like that can get it at home.
That's true. Yeah. But here's the thing that I know that that I'm going to be talking about, Lou, for the rest of the for the next couple of days as far as videos and live streams go, and that's its poor opening at the box office of 70 to 75 million. This weekend, it's only going to make 70 to 75 million. It will be at least $10 million less of an opening weekend than Captain America: Brave New World. That's the wrong direction, Lou. All of this is trending downward, and I'm worried about Marvel long term.
When I saw the comparison between this and Captain and all those, it occurred to me, one of the big things that they're trying to supposedly fight for at the movie theater end is, well, we want a window when you guarantee you won't run it on streaming so we can get what we can get out of it. Well, if it falls off in the first week and a half and the window is 6 weeks, you're going to have 3 or 4 weeks of empty theaters again anyway.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a good thing. And you're stuck with it then, because even if some little strange, weird phenomenon called Godzilla shows up, you haven't got a screen for it because you're stuck with that window. So
I think that contracts in the future will have to favor the exhibitors because I think the exhibitors need some latitude in order to make money, and make something of the hits that there are. I know the studios would probably appreciate the not locked in contracts as well, because if they have something that's dying on the vine that they might be able to salvage for streaming fodder, that
Before the
they
word of
would.
mouth totally kills it.
Exactly.
Which
And
brings
the
us back
other
to our previous story about people saying, well, I don't think I want to pay for this
exactly,
service anymore.
exactly. I thought this was a great pick by Vash for us to talk about because
Papa Feige,
uh,
Fogey,
yeah, yeah,
51 years old.
yeah.
Usually,
He's a
don't they
pup.
just say Figgy 51, comma, rather than adding the words years old?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm older than this guy, so am I a papa now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you got a
I
pizza parlor?
No, but I need one.
Well,
I promise I won't say anything untoward as well. So or objectionable. Look, Thunderbolts is the least of the problem because we're coming up on Fantastic Four First Steps, and they basically gave away the ending in the well, possibly I'll say the ending of that film by having these people appear in an interdimensional spaceship at the end of Thunderbolts. Spoilers.
so in other words, if you were one of the few who bothered to go see this, you have just been disincentivized from seeing the Fantastic Four movie because you know how it ends.
If that's the takeaway.
Yeah,
If
right,
that's
right.
the takeaway, right? But the idea being
See, and then they throw in all this. Look at 35 days of reshoots, longer than the entire production money. Yeah, right. But so what? That's not the comparison. And 35 is few compared to things like Snow White. And
oh,
so,
Lou, have you ever heard of a production going over the course of 3 years that wasn't directly tied to a strike?
sure.
Really?
If it's made by Marvel, I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's
Because
fair.
you see, here's the thing: when strikes are impending, they don't start because the last thing they want to do is get caught in the middle, especially with all these pay for play, whether we're shooting or not deals that they make to some of the big actors. That's the story of why there is a Century City in Los Angeles. It used to be the backlot of Fox, and then Fox made Cleopatra, and they had a deal where they had to keep paying Liz and Dick whether the cameras were turning or not. And she
Yep.
got pneumonia, and they were
Yeah.
shooting Rome in Britain, and it never stopped raining. So they said, well, let's shut it all down and move all the sets and go to Rome, which is the real Rome, and all that downtime. They literally put a padlock on the studio for about a year before they made the deal with Alcoa to sell most of the land. So, there are wheels within wheels, and all
That
I know
lot.
is all I know is we were talking about movies we've done on Genre Guys. One of the other fun ones, of course, was Demolition Man.
Yeah.
And Demolition Man is a great movie, but we found in the course of our research that they played with the script for 6 years before they ever turned a foot of film. Playing with the script is cheap. Shooting film is expensive.
Yeah.
Now, they literally announced, didn't they come out with a story this week somewhere that said that this new Doctor Doom thing,
Mhm.
they haven't got a finished script, but by
Nope.
God, we're shooting anyway.
No, they have almost no script. It's even
So
worse than what's being reported. So
now there have been movies that pre-shot effects. The most famous probably is the burning of Atlanta sequence in Gone with the Wind was shot before they ever, and it was shot without Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh. It was two people dressed as them riding a buckboard in front of a whole section of the old RKO lot down in Culver City that they wanted to tear out anyway. So what they did is they put fake antebellum bric-a-brac on the buildings and then lit it on fire. One of the things that burns in that sequence, by the way, is the Great Wall from King Kong. I don't know if you knew that.
no. Wow.
Yeah. When they're driving that buckboard past and you see those little, gingerbread balconies, they're stuck onto the wall from King Kong, for God's sakes. But
Holy
hey,
cow.
they had it in the can and like that. So
Oh, that's crazy.
yeah, but again, that made sense because now we could clear that land and build sets for the movie on that
Right.
empty place. So,
That's
uh,
amazing. That's so
Lou, do you have
amazing.
any information on the fire? No, I don't. Sorry. The fire at Universal I know about, but I don't know if that's the same one you're talking about. I was there in those days.
The one that took out the music vault and the studio masters.
Yeah, that I don't know about. But if
Oh,
that was part of the bigger fire on the backlot at Universal, I was there. A fire, by the way, that was started by a rent-a-cop security guard from a company called Burns.
oh
Uh,
no. Oh
yes,
no.
yes, 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 yes.
Oh,
And God,
irony.
I'll never forget walking through there the day after, and the building that the King Kong attraction was in,
Yeah.
the blistering of the paint on the side of that thing said everything you need to know about how hot a
The
fire
intensity of it
can
all.
burn.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Insane. Well, I'll look, I'll say this. I have been blessed to be here with you today, Lou. I can't believe that I got to be a part of one of these great shows. And I did my best imitation of Vash, but
uh,
I am no Vash. So it's okay.
I know Vash, and Vash is a friend of mine. And Culture Casino, you're no Vash.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know.
That's a great. See, most people wouldn't know where that line was going, but
Well,
I want to say thanks, Lou. Is there anything else you want to wrap
well,
up
I'm
with, or
looking.
something?
Juliet says, "Are you going to tell us your news at the end of the?" No, I'm not, Juliet, because I'm having technical difficulties. It'll have to wait a week.
There
That was
we
the
go.
same fire, Amnuk says. So yes, I was there then. But
Wow,
well, you know,
man.
the one thing about that fire, well, I've mentioned it before, but we're trying to wrap up here. But
That's okay.
when they rebuilt the back lot, although it was new, they followed the exact same patterns of the streets, of all the New York streets and all of that. And the reason was that's where the gas and the electric and the sewage lines were. And so if you didn't want to redo the infrastructure, you had to follow the same patterns, which were fine. But no, the real tragedy of that fire, it was a terrible fire, don't get me wrong. Thank God nobody got hurt. But they were making this awful Stallone comedy gangster movie at the time. And it was something like 13 or 14 amazingly beautiful classic cars got burned up in that fire.
Oh wow,
And they
really?
were able to finish the movie in Orlando because the streets were imitations of the home
Right,
base,
right.
but not with those cars, they weren't. So, anyway,
That's crazy. What was that called? I'm trying to remember that Stallone film with the gangster thing.
it had
Yeah.
like a person's name.
It was very odd. Um,
It wasn't funny. And
no, it wasn't very
no,
good.
no,
Um, yeah. Anyway, regardless, movies unremembered that will go down in history as one
yeah,
of those.
yeah.
But do check out Barry Place right after this, and myself, Culture Casino, but mostly Barry Place, which I lost the promotion there. That was here that I actually starred on purpose. Let me get to that. Say thank you to
Oscar.
Scott Westbrook,
Might have
Jeremiah
been
Hembry.
Oscar.
It
Let's
is
see.
Oscar. It is
Yeah.
Oscar. Yep. Jeremiah Hembry and Maravita. Then this is where you want to go next, our friend Barry Place. Good way to see Southern California's most famous attraction, Disneyland. So do
Uh,
check that out. I
to all who
I
come to this happy place,
welcome.
welcome, and it ain't what it used to be. Darn it.
That's true. The lovely Jillian B makes it in. Jillian P. Did I just say that? Jillian H. Lovely Jillian H makes it in before the end for
Man of a
5.
thousand faces. Lon Chaney, eat your heart out.
True
See
story.
there?
Yeah.
Culture is
Oh,
such a great actor.
I wish that were
Uh,
true. Jillian is here though, saying Culture is such a great actor. Well, thank you.
to
Yesterday
be an
he.
actor, see Mr. Factor. He'll
That's true.
make your kisser look good. Go on and try your luck. You could be Donald Duck.
Hooray for Hollywood!
Exactly.
That's right. I actually did the. I'm not going to go into that right now. We don't have time. I'm trying to end, and I want to get to this because I've been called a great actor. Yesterday I played Mr. H, and today I'm playing VashSky. While I miss Vash, Culture and Lou are doing an excellent job. Well, thank you for that. Much appreciated. Jillian is pretty much the heart of our lovely crew of supporters here, and I appreciate it so very much. We need to get going
If
though.
she's the
Lou,
heart, who's the spleen?
probably Jonas.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Well,
probably.
no, you kind of because like technically, isn't the spleen like a vestigial organ? I mean, you kind of it's good to help filter to
I
the blood, but
don't
at the same
know.
time, I think you can like not have it and still be all right. I think it's more difficult to fight infections and things like that without a spleen.
I just know that people vent them.
Ooh,
Figuratively speaking, I'm
that doesn't
venting
sound
my
good.
spleen or whatever.
Yeah, this is another good question. Who's the pancreas?
I
Pancreas
don't know.
is an essential organ, so probably
Yes,
Jonas.
yes.
Jonas would be essential.
Yeah.
But
Who
Lou,
was Saint Pancreas that they named a train station after? No,
well,
that was Pancras.
Lou
Anyway,
is certainly our little our brain of the operation.
the little gray cells.
There you go. Our gray matter.
Hercule Poirot. Hey, by the way, any of you that have Amazon and in particular BritBox, there is a new series on there with the wonderful actor who portrayed Hercule Poirot all those years, David Suchet, where he follows, it seems like Agatha Christie, just when she was starting to get famous as a writer, took this world tour on behalf of a British Empire exhibition to Australia and New Zealand and Canada and South Africa. And he follows in her footsteps and takes the same trip. I just got finished watching it the other night, and it's just wonderful. It's just charming. So there's something to watch instead of movies that gain subscribers but don't. I think it's in the footsteps of Agatha. But anyway, look it up on Amazon Prime with
Indeed.
BritBox, and you'll see. Anyway.
Indeed. All right. Well, with that, folks, we have only the suggestions of to be sure that you are subscribed and possibly a member of that Park Place and WW Pro, so you don't miss any of the exclusive content that we give to everybody early and as part of those wonderful offerings. So, Lou, anything else you want to mention before I hit the get out of here button?
Not a thing. No, well, I mean, the genre guys shows up here 3 months after it shows up as a member perk on Pro for free,
Sure.
so you can kind of get 2 dips of the same drink.
Yep, you can double dip and check out all the amazing content. I got to tell you, the VIP area is brilliant in the website, and oftentimes this brilliant man writes amazing things as well. So,
oh well, I haven't lately, but actually, I wrote one that they couldn't do because we didn't own the pictures. But what can I say?
All right. On that note, everybody, thank you for joining us today for this version of Lou and You. And with that,
next week, usual time, usual host, usual craziness, and
yeah. But it's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
I knew you were going there. I tell you, great minds song quote alike or something. Or at least they do around here. Good night, everybody.
Have an incredible weekend. Wrap up your weekend, and we'll see you this week. Thanks.